Mm-hmm. Yes, I hear you. I, I agree. You're right. The, listen, Rini, I absolutely know that what you're saying is true. I absolutely know that I shouldn't let it bother me, but it just doesn't help me from feeling humiliated every single time I walk to the goddamn grocery store. And really, really, you are the limit. What do you want me to do? Stay in this house talking to ghosts, or like parade up and down the street for the benefit of the neighbors so they can say, "Oh, look, there goes the widow Winston Lee, her husband like to fuck little girls." No, no. Actually, I won't. I'm finished. Finished listening to everybody else. I'm fed up, and for 15 years he stored me here, and I stayed like a faithful dog, and I have got nothing left to stay for anymore, and I got this stain on me that I can't get out. And I am talking about the girl. I am talking about the little slut in the airplane. For the love of God, Reedy, do you have to be so thick? I am talking about her and my husband Howard, the pedophile. Yes. What other explanation is there? The facts are the facts. I am. Yes, I'm leaving. The house is on the market, and I'm moving tomorrow, and I've made up my mind. Okay. Hold on. Yeah. All right. Just wait. Mm. Okay, I promise. Yep. I promise. I will. Okay. Hold on, Rini. Listen. I'm sorry. We'll get together soon, and thank you for thinking of me. Okay. The facts are the facts. I first got the news. I was at a committee meeting at the Art Gallery of Ontario. And these two women came into the boardroom to tell me that I had the phone call up in the executive director's office. And, the carpet up there is really soft. So they didn't make a sound as they walked toward me. And it's just like they say. I knew before I got up out of my chair that Howard was dead. How do you explain a thing like that? Really? He was in perfect health. I wasn't concerned that he was flying around in that goddamn airplane of his. I thought he was safe on the ground in New York, but he wasn't. He was dead beside a lake 300 miles north of Toronto. So, when I think about, all the little ridiculous things that you do together in your lifetime, all the little tiny things that add up to two people knowing each other so well that one of those people can come to an unthinkable conclusion just at the sight of two strangers coming across a room. I have to believe that has something to do with what love is. And then when I think about, the way he died, and the woman who died with him, whoever she was, I really should say girl, because she was just a child. And when I think about the sordid way the stories came out in the newspaper, then I have to say, "You bastard," out loud, like that, quite often. I just couldn't stop thinking about who she was and what she had to do with my husband. I actually didn't at first, but thoughts, they lodge in your brain and they grow there. And I have had 6 months to think about this, and now I know I will never have another thought in my head until I get rid of that one. Yeah, the loveliest part is when they make you look at them. It's just, the cruiser picked me up and drove me downtown. Near Yonge Street, we drove into a basement into this cold room with the drawers on the wall. And the contents of Howard's drawer were quite known to me, but I had never, ever laid eyes on that poor girl in my entire life. Huh. If you think cops can't be creative, you'd be wrong, because they thought of 150 different ways of asking me the same question, but they never fashioned a notion as to who she was. And they'll never admit to this, but I know that they just closed the book on the whole thing the day that lead detective went on holiday, and then by January, they stopped returning my calls altogether. They were clearly not interested in this mystery, but I was interested. So, I hired a private investigator. He was the most disgusting man I have ever met in my entire life. But he helped me.
I lit a match and opened the window, but I wouldn't go in there if I were you.
Oh. So, is this the sort of work you're accustomed to doing?
Divorce work is what I usually do.
Yes, that's what Rini told me.
It's all the same thing if you ask me. Everybody leaves a little trail of slime as they pass through this life. All I do is find it and follow it. You don't have to be a genius. But this stuff, it's quite a puzzle, right?
Well, it is to me.
Well, the cops too. They haven't got it figured out.
No. They don't seem to be very interested at all.
Oh, if they could figure it out, they'd be interested. Why Temagami?
Well, Howard had a fishing lodge up there. I suppose you could call it our summer cottage.
It sort of looks like they were planning to shack up together for the weekend. Huh.
Yeah, it does, but I have a very hard time imagining my husband having sex with a child.
You'd be surprised. A lot of guys like them young. They pick them up off the streets usually. Sometimes they disappear. Who gives a shit, right? How old do you figure this one was?
15 or 16.
Says here, your husband was 48.
48, yes.
Well, you have to figure that anything is possible.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Would you like some coffee?
Oh, no thanks. It's got water in it.
I beg your pardon?
Well, it rusts the stomach.
Oh. You'd like a drink?
I wouldn't say no. Yeah, your grub is good. Hit the spot. Was your husband drunk at the time of the crash?
No. The pathologists don't think so. There was no cloud cover on that day, and they think that the tree tops hit the top of the pontoon. Which one would you like?
No, doesn't make a difference. Just don't put any ice in it. Were the beds slept in?
No, they don't appear to have been slept in.
Anybody check the sheets?
Do you have to be so vulgar?
What am I supposed to be looking for? You want facts or fiction?
Well, I want the facts.
Well, then we need to know if he was fucking or not. What about you? You're not a drinker?
I find that liquor makes me sleepy in the daytime.
No problem with that. All you do then is jump into bed.
Look, Mr. Patterson, do you think you're going to be able to help me?
I don't see why not. The fact that they're dead presents a problem. Otherwise, I just phone around, which is my specialty, until the trail ended up as girls. What we need to do in this instance is track backwards. We better have a look at his financial records. My philosophy is, if you want to know anything about anybody, just assume the absolute worst about them and figure out how they spend their money. So, the first thing you need to do is dig out all that sort of stuff.
Okay. What sort of stuff?
All his records, taxes, canceled checks, credit card receipts, things like that. No? Well, look, you say he was away a lot.
Yes.
Let's start with his letters home.
But he wasn't much of a letter writer.
Well, dig. Go to his office, go to the bank, get his business papers, get it all together in one place, and start going through it.
Me? You want me to do that? No, I'm sorry. I would not know where to
You
begin.
know better than anybody else. Just to look for things that don't add up. Don't worry. I'll help you. Assume that there were things that you didn't know about him. Assume that some of them were pretty nasty. Why don't we try this? Everybody eats, everybody sleeps. Try that for a start. Figure out where he ate, where he slept, and then who with. I mean, that's all there is to it. Just imagine that you're hunting snails. Who's the kid?
That's Tommy. He was our son.
Was?
Yes, he died 6 months before Howard.
Ooh. You've had a tough time.
It hasn't been pleasant.
Who took the picture?
Howard did.
It's a good picture. Huh. Very well composed.
You a photographer?
Not really. I like looking at pictures. You can tell a lot about people from the pictures they take. Also from the ones that they keep around.
Yeah. Howard was a photographer. Yeah. Yeah. Well, he carried his camera around with him wherever he went. So.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You got any of his pictures here?
Oh, yeah. I have about 1 million of them in these boxes somewhere.
Well, maybe we should take a look at them.
Howard and I first met when we were in high school. I was the brains, and he was the bad apple. Yeah. My parents worried more that I'd marry him than that I'd catch cold. You know, he was really one for the ladies. So there was this one time, we were all working on some project together, painting posters or banners or something, and Howard comes in late with his girlfriend at the time, a cheerleader, right? And they come through the door, right through the room. We were in some ethnic hall, into this small room at the back with an armchair in it, the overstuffed kind. And, oh God, he was wearing this leather windbreaker and cowboy boots. Yeah. So they fell into each other's arms and they fell into the chair together. And I could see them for a moment framed in the doorway where I stood. And Howard looks up and he lifts his foot and he touches the door and he pushes it shut. Well, I must have stood there looking at that shut door for 5 minutes. Talk about dumbfounded, right? It's just, and that memory is 25 years old and as clear as a bell in my mind's eye. It just, yeah, it's wonderful. The feelings you have when you're a kid and you're in love for the first time. Oh, I was so crazy about him for a whole year after he kicked that door shut, and he had no idea. And then the next year, we were in homeroom together, and oh God, every single time we talked, which actually got to be quite often, my neck and my chest would flush red like beets. Oh, and the color rising from my body, that wasn't even the most embarrassing part. I would get hot, and I couldn't breathe, and oh my God, I would say the stupidest things. Oh, for you people who don't blush, you have no idea what it's like to be truly mortified. So, anyway, later that year, Howard was running for student council president, and I was, a lowly volunteer in his organization. And there was this one night. It was a Saturday. Oh, it was my birthday, in fact. And there I was at Deer Park Community Center, painting posters and banners, and Howard was holding court, and, I was convinced at this point that he had no idea that I existed in the romance department, but miracles can happen. Yeah. So there were like 20 or so of us, including Howard, in the room, and there's this light switch by the door. And for reasons I cannot explain, I went over to that light switch and I shut it off. And the next thing I knew, I'm standing in the middle of that room in the pitch dark in Howard's arms. I mean, we must have been thinking the exact same thing at the exact same time to have found each other in the dark like that. It was magic. It was. Oh my God. I do not remember what the other students said. I don't remember the lights coming on. I just remember being in his arms. I remember kissing him. I did. I remember my breasts against his chest. I remember him driving me home, walking me to the door, and kissing me again. And if that's not heaven, yeah, well, it was, no, there's nothing better, so. Anyway, for the rest of the year, we were sweethearts. And then in the fall, Howard went to school in the States, and I went to the University of Toronto. And in the summers, he would work in the racetracks in upstate New York, or usually. So I didn't really get to see him very often until he moved back to start his business. But whenever we did see each other, we would just pick right up where we left off as if there was no interruption whatsoever. Oh, and we had our own apartments. But my father is a very proper man. He thought we were living in sin. I guess we were, because, it certainly was a pleasure. So by the time we finally made it to the altar of St. George's Anglican Church, the 60s were over. And then it was another 10 years until I had Tommy. My rhythms are just so slow. I think I'm unusual that way. Things happen so much faster for other people. They can cram so much more into their lives, like their blood flows faster through their veins and get back to their heart quicker or something. So, and a child. Well, a child stops the life you've been living. I mean, the gaiety just goes right out of it, right? Some people hate their children. That's what I think, and that's why. Or they hate that they can't be as lighthearted as they used to be. I didn't hate Tommy. Oh my God, he gave me enormous other pleasures. But I just couldn't relax when I wasn't around him. I just couldn't enjoy myself. Not a day went by when I didn't have some dreadful thought surface in my mind, some image of injury or death, and anything could trigger it. A car backfiring on the street, or the news, or something on the television. I thought if I could think it, it would happen. Could you imagine that? Imagining you can think your child to death? When you only have yourself to think about, well, you can take some chances. I mean, not even a husband interferes with that too much, but a child. Well, a child is the end of your own childhood, really, right? Like, you have all these new worries and anxieties. Not him. It's as if he is like you used to be, like he inherited that part of you and it's gone from you and into him, which is good. It's just the only bad part is when people tell you to relax, have a good time. Husbands don't understand that. I think it's a disease that only women get, and I had it. Ooh, I had it bad. But it's gone now. Yeah, it's a silver lining, I guess. I don't have anything left to worry about. I don't have anything that I'm afraid of anymore. So Howard was really, he really was a wonderful man. He looked a lot like Ronald Reagan when Ronald Reagan was younger. Yeah. Oh, I read somewhere once that if you asked Ronald Reagan what time it was, he'd tell you how to make a watch. And Howard was like that. So it could be really infuriating sometimes when he gets... Oh my God. Oh. Living alone makes you so chatty.
Who's the dame?
That's
Howard's sister.
Ah, any connection?
No. I haven't seen her in a long time. She doesn't like me very much. Do you think she's pretty?
Nothing special.
You know, Reenie's having a party this Saturday night. Yeah, she wants to celebrate her divorce decree. She wanted me to ask you if you'd like to come.
She's a great gal, Rini. They don't make them like her anymore. You know, she wanted pictures.
Oh.
You don't really have to have them anymore, but she wanted to see for herself, she said. Shit, you should have seen the look on her old man's face when I caught him in the act.
Hey.
Oh, very confused. Looking up at the camera with his dick still stuck in the lady. Great picture.
You know, she wants to have that one framed, and she's going to hang it above the fireplace of the new house.
Yeah. That's the part I miss. Busting down those motel room doors and actually seeing the pigeons face to face. Work used to have a nice finished feel to it. You'd go out and have a couple of drinks after, and you know what it was you were celebrating. How are you doing? Any luck?
Oh, well, okay. I have 62 unknown environments, 21 unknown faces, and 3 photos of Howard. I don't know who took them.
You're doing good. Let's take a look at them after I get done here.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I also have some interesting things I found last night from the charge vouchers.
Really?
Yeah. Well, in May, he went to the yearling sales in Kentucky, and he stayed in 4 different hotel rooms in 10 days' time. But once, as Mr. and Mrs.
No.
Yeah, and then he spent $900 on food and entertainment. He brought me back a platter, $26 from A.M. Hadley's Pottery Barn. It was a second. Ugh.
Any line on the missus?
Well, the diary entry says J.K., which I take to be June Kennedy. She bought a lot of thoroughbred stock from him, and now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably something fairly regular going around. Ugh. Swine.
Which one?
Both of them.
2. Infidelity. What?
Okay.
What?
Oh. Well, when I first started to get curious about the girl, I thought it might be a good idea to go talk to the people who did business with Howard on the day that he died. I know it probably sounds stupid to you, but I thought if I spoke to those people...
It doesn't sound stupid.
Well, actually I ended up being kind of stupid. It was March, and it was a sunny day, and it didn't look like it would ever snow again, but of course it did, and I ended up getting stuck at this motel room in the Catskills. But by the second day, it was kind of like a transit strike. You know, everybody's talking to each other, and we were singing by the piano till 2 in the morning. And I'm telling you, it was the most fun I'd had in a long time. And then I went to bed with a black traveling salesman.
Happens every day.
Well, no. I mean, not to me. It doesn't. I just thought it was funny because Howard has had all these affairs that I didn't know about, and now I had an affair that Howard doesn't know about, unless, of course, he's listening, which I don't really... Aren't you a little bit surprised at me?
No, I'm not surprised. You're just getting good in your old age. What's the story on this one? Do you know those people?
No.
Do you know where this is?
No, I do not.
Let's make a note of that. Did your husband have any backers?
Any what?
Backers, investors. Did anyone else lay claim to any of his profits?
No. My father helped him when he first started, but no. Why?
So if he made money or lost it, it was nobody's business but his own and the government's maybe.
Is there something wrong with the books?
Yeah, they don't add up right.
What does that have to do with the girl?
Nothing, most likely. Maybe drugs. Maybe she was just a very expensive habit. Maybe it's me just being nosy, but there's something that doesn't add up.
Oh, this is like having a rat in my head. Oh, even my memory of these people are contaminated. Do you have any idea what this feels like?
Not really.
No, I bet you don't. Oh.
Well, it's no good feeling sorry for yourself. I better go. It's late.
Oh, no, don't. Don't go. I'm sorry. I'll make us some martinis.
Is that what you want?
Yeah. Oh, this is just, it's all my fault.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. It's just, that is worse when I was living at my old house, I tell you. Howard and I had this routine. I would make a couple of pretty serious drinks, right before supper time. Of gin and tonics in the summer, martinis in the winter, and I guess we liked our gin, huh? Anyway, there were a few days last winter when, right around cocktail hour, my mind would start to drift. And then when I snapped out of it, I realized that, I've been looking forward to having those cocktails again. Yeah, that's not good. It was like walking into a trap I knew was set. It was way worse on Prince Edward Drive. That is one of the reasons I had to move from there. It's getting a bit loony. Yeah, I even got to the point where I would take out the 2 martini glasses. Yeah, that is not good. And then I would come up with the bright idea to go to the undertaker's, because I'd been avoiding picking up the box of Howard's remains and taking that box and putting it here in the liquor cabinet next to the bottle of gin to remind me not to make his goddamn drink. But the trouble was, I like to have the drinks in the sunroom. That's where Howard and I would sit and we would talk and we would laugh. And I got to the point where I was feeling bad about leaving Howard alone in the liquor cabinet, so I would bring him with me, this box of ashes with me. Oh, that's really about the time where I was starting to lose it big time. Because I would sit there and we would talk about the events of the day, and sometimes it was ridiculous. I would get angry at him and go, "Oh, you bastard! How could you leave me alone in this world?" And, You want to know what saved me, though? Looking at the ashes.
No.
Yeah. They're actually not at all like you think they'd look. They're kind of gritty. They're not, like light and fluffy like cigarette ashes. And they got these chunks of burnt bones and solid matter and not even a very pretty color. Just junk. Certainly not company. It's not enough to make you stop waking up on his side of the bed and going, oh, he's going to come home soon and I'm going to have to roll over to my side of the bed where it's cold. Don't you hate sleeping in a cold bed?
I do. Sometimes.
Well, here's to my dead husband. I still wonder if he loves me. I suppose there was a specific moment in time when the love we had at the beginning ended. Or Howard's love for me, because I know I never really stopped loving him completely. I never really even thought about it until the day Tommy died in the fridge. I actually didn't even think about it that day. It was later when I couldn't figure out why we couldn't offer any consolation for each other. We just kept crashing into each other like jungle animals. We would try to hold each other for comfort and end up colliding like giraffes. The realization that Tommy was gone forever flooded over us as we stood on that little patio. Him shaking, me wailing. It was his fault, of course. He forgot, that's all. But normally his memory was perfect. We just couldn't share the grief, no matter how hard we tried. It was just impossible. And it was his mistake that separated us forever, as it turns out. I remember thinking, okay, he doesn't love me anymore. He doesn't. And I would scrutinize everything he said and did for proof. And there was plenty of proof, of course. I just thought it was easier to think that he couldn't possibly love me because of the blunder that he made when he left Tommy in the fridge. Ugh. I know. I'm telling this whole story ass backwards. I should probably start at the beginning of this sad, stupid story. Yeah, just on that day we were, it was a Saturday and I went shopping. I managed to find a dress for my nephew's wedding that was coming up. And I drove home into the garage. I could hear the phone ringing in the house. But I went across the driveway to the neighbor's because I picked up some dance pamphlets for her, something I thought she'd be interested in, but she was going to a dinner party, so I only stayed a minute. And then I walked into the house, and Howard is talking on the phone. He was laughing and tossing around figures, the way men do, and I walked into the kitchen, and he kissed me, and he shoved his hand up my blouse. He really wasn't paying much attention, and I thought, where's Tommy? He's usually at the front door to meet me whenever I go any place, and I looked in the backyard, and there was nothing, and I thought, oh, he's at Sarah's, he's watching the dreaded television, he's only 6, so I made myself a drink, and then I sat down in the living room, and my feet were tired. That's a part where I should have said something. I should have said, where's Tommy? But I didn't, because I didn't want to interrupt Howard. He was laughing and relaxed, and I'm polite and considerate. That's how I was raised. Too considerate, as it turns out. But really all I had to say was, where's Tommy? I thought he would be mad, but he wouldn't have been mad, but he would have just said, without interrupting his conversation, he could have just said he was upstairs, or he was at Sarah's, or he's at the park by himself. But I'm polite, and my son died of that disease, and Howard isn't the most concerned parent in the best of circumstances. He was the kind of father that wanted his son to grow up to be tough and manly, so he'd let him fall off of horses and off of bicycles and get thrown into the air and into the water and go to the park by himself. So I finished my drink. And I decided to try on my dress, so I stripped right down there in the living room. And I walked into the kitchen, and I struck a couple of poses, and when he finally noticed, he beckoned me over, stroked the material of the dress, and then he stroked me. And I was hot and sticky. My thighs were sticky from walking around all day, and I was worried that Tommy was going to come in, but Howard likes to live dangerously in matters like this, and sometimes so do I. So he positioned me on his lap, and he put the phone between his ear and his shoulder. I was facing him. I was looking over his shoulder, through the window into the patio where I could see that the old fridge had been dragged out. I must have walked by it on my way in. And I imagined the new fridge installed behind me. Thought, oh, Howard just shoved everything in there and didn't wipe anything off. Howard was listening more and talking less. He shifted his attention over to me. He's getting very intimate under my dress, and when he wasn't talking, he would bite the nipple of my breast. Summer was always a very sexy time for us. He pulled down my panties, and I thought, okay, he's gonna fuck me right here in the kitchen. So I said in the tiniest little voice, I said, "Where's Tommy?" And his body went like stone, and he pushed me off of him. He hung up the phone without saying another word, and before I could get up, he was through the patio, standing in front of the fridge, his big hand shaking. He opened the fridge door, and out tumbled our son onto the patio. Howard barely caught him, for all that mattered. He learned his lesson, because not all the mouth-to-mouth in the world could breathe air into his lungs. Anyway, that's the sad part. Oh, that's the saddest part. Just, yeah. You wonder, where the grief goes. It just lives inside of you somewhere, and you don't know what's there. It's just... Howard died 6 months later. That's just, he... on American Thanksgiving. Yeah. It was a beautiful day. I remember taking my coffee to the garden and sitting on the swing. I was just wearing a cardigan. I remember being jealous. Oh, Howard gets to spend this beautiful day in New York, I thought. Thanksgiving. Because Canadian Thanksgiving had been dreadful, been gray and miserable. Pretty miserable on Prince Edward Drive, too. We made a couple of meals together. We were not very good company. And that was the last Thanksgiving we spent together. We acted as if we had nothing to be thankful for. Morning.
Morning.
Jack, what is it that a man looks for in a woman?
In what sense?
Well, in the physical sense.
Why do you want to know?
I'm just wondering.
Like what?
Like what it is about a woman that appeals to a man.
You should ask somebody else. I'm not very representative.
You think I'm ugly?
No, I like the way you look.
I went to the cemetery the other morning, and there's this big bouquet of magnolia blossoms on the foot of Howard's plaque.
Well, that's odd, isn't it?
Yeah, it's odd. Magnolias don't bloom in the spring.
Any idea how they got there?
Probably another one of his girlfriends. I mean, we're gonna start tripping all over each other pretty soon.
Any clues?
Mm-mm.
Any suggestions?
Post a lookout.
Well, I was planning to fly down to New York, but we could drive down if you wanted to come. I mean, change might do you good.
Do you think I'd be any good in bed?
Well, you should ask somebody who knows. traveling salesman, for example. What's the matter with you all of a sudden?
I just want to know what it is a man looks for in a woman in bed, that's all.
We're not all the same.
Will you please just do me a favor, Jack? Why don't you just tell me what you want?
I don't know.
Well,
not too serious, I guess.
oh.
Not too noisy. Huh. Yeah, movement, I guess, is the main thing. Yeah. The still ones are either afraid to move it or they're lying there analyzing, waiting for the poor sucker to make a fool out of himself. Yeah. That's probably the main thing. I like a woman who moves. Well, as long as she doesn't hurt me sometimes. I like to feel that we're both engaged in the same activity. Oh, yeah. And when a woman crosses her leg the first time I look at her, oh, I take her right off my list. Are you happy now?
How long are you going to be gone for?
It depends on what I can find out. I'm still trying to trace the missing money.
You still think it's drugs?
Well, he was parting with his money for some reason. Keeping very quiet about it. You know, plus, something else is funny. I don't know if you noticed, but, according to his records, he spent 21 days in Saratoga last year and never paid a hotel bill. Huh. I want to check that one out. So, what about you? You coming or staying?
Oh, I think I better stay.
Yeah.
Hello, this is the Winstonley resident. Please leave a message at the tone. Thank you.
It's Jack. I've got something good for you. I found out I was putting magnolia on your husband's grave. I'm at the airport. I'm coming down. God damn it, I know you're there. Why can't you fucking
always used to say, let sleeping dogs lie, and I never ever had any cause to doubt him. How on earth did I get heading down in this direction? I figured out the other day that I've looked at over 8,000 photographs, some of them more than once, in the past 3 weeks. And the irony is, I went to great lengths to avoid looking at them when Howard was alive. All those pictures and papers. They're like x-rays, and I expected to learn something about him, and I felt I did at first. I felt I was filling in some of his dots, but then Jack and I would come up with little details, even insignificant ones. And new pictures would form in my head, and I couldn't verify those with Howard. I could not compare my version with his. And now, I just don't want to know anything. This is just all so stupid. After all, Howard and I were practically the same person. Whatever I didn't know about him was just stuff that happened in space, in the breaths and the breathers from the main event, which was our life together. I mean, we wouldn't even open each other's junk mail. If he wanted something from my purse, like a stamp, I'd say, go get it yourself, and he would bring it to me, and even if my hands were covered in flour, I'd have to... And now I've sifted through his entire life. I have dogged him like a criminal from another country. I just feel dirty. So, what on earth do I need to know about him that I don't already know?
So, are you ready for this? The girl was your old man's daughter, for Christ's sake. So the mother says, and I believed her. She said the reason she never came forward was because there was no point. By the time she heard anything, the bodies had been incinerated already. Are you interested in any of this?
I'm listening.
You were the wife, and the mom was the girlfriend. That was the deal. He looked after them, and she wasn't supposed to do anything that would land him in the soup as far as you were concerned. Pretty cozy situation, if you ask me. You know, I wish he'd come out of there. I feel like I'm talking to myself.
I'll only be a minute.
Oh, all right. But apparently, they started knocking around together when your husband was in college. Her father trained a few horses in Yonkers, just outside New York City, and your husband did a little work for him in the morning. Anyway, boy met girl, had a backstretch romance, which ends when he throws her over to marry his high school sweetheart, which is you. Only he never quite threw her over. You know what I'm talking about. Somewhere along the line, he must have knocked her up. And that's where the money was going. He was setting her up with a nice little motel right next door to the harness racing track, and which was a convenient place for him to hang his hat whenever he went down there for the sales.
Well, Howard was always really good at combining business with pleasure, right? You gonna take your coat off?
Jeez, are you ever dolled up? What's the big occasion?
End of the investigation. Right? Oh, I put some supper on. Are you hungry?
Yeah, I am. Now that you mention it. You know, that flight up here is a real bag of shit. You go Albany to LaGuardia, wait an hour and a half, and 3 hours later you're flying over Albany again.
Did you miss me?
Yeah, I did. I miss burning the midnight oil with you.
Is she still pretty?
I'd say so. Cagey guy, your husband.
How so?
Well, he had an eye for good-looking women. and he knew how to keep things organized.
Do you know how old the girl was exactly? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, do I? I got that right here. Sophie was what they called her. Just a shade under 16. Sometimes you really got to hand it to the guys in the lab. Born December 7th.
Oh.
Pearl Harbor Day.
Oh, God.
Is that funny?
Ah. Thinking about my honeymoon.
Yours?
Mm-hmm. That's the year I was married.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I see what you mean.
Mm-hmm. Second Saturday of January, worst snowstorm in Toronto's history. I wake up in Miami. I wanted to go to Paris, but he said he had business in Florida. Like the heat in the winter. Ugh. We stayed until the end of April, so that's actually a picture of me right there, 16 years ago at our special romantic spot. Ugh.
You haven't changed a bit.
Yes, I have. Huh. What about her?
The mother?
Yeah.
She was keeping all this shit to herself for quite a long time. When I mentioned your husband's name to her, she said she didn't know him. I pushed. And she said she thought he was in Australia. She laughed a bit when she said it, but she knew I knew. I just kept looking at her like the miserable bastard that I am until the tears started rolling down her face. She sure as hell had a lot of water in her.
Did you like her?
She got spunk.
Yeah. I think I want to go down there and say hi to her.
Well, she'll be expecting to hear from you, I would imagine.
Oh, no. Why would that be?
Well, a motel for one thing. I mean, you gotta make arrangements about that.
Wait, what sort of arrangements?
Well, it's yours now, isn't it? I mean, it's part of your husband's estate.
No. Can't I just leave everything the way it is?
Not very well.
Why not?
Look, he had a hell of a lot of money tied up in that place. I know you're comfortable, but you don't want to, you don't want to be spreading that type of thing around here now.
I just know. What's going to happen to her?
She'll just have to fold her cards.
Ugh.
That's all. That's the way these things work out.
No. I'm just going to have to think about that now.
Bad news, huh?
Well, no. It's not that. I just have to rearrange all these pictures in my head. It's fine. You're a terrific detective.
Thanks. It's too bad that you don't like my style a little better.
I like your style.
You're pulling my leg. I guess that's it. I'm pretty beat. I should get a move on.
Oh, wait, you were gonna stay for supper?
Oh. Yeah. That's right. I forgot about that.
And you can sleep on the sofa again.
Well, I don't want to put you in a lot of trouble.
Oh, well, there's no trouble at all. Look, you got your pillow, get your blanket.
Well, maybe I'll take you up on that offer. Well, you look great in that outfit. You should get dressed up more often.
When's the last time you had a bath, Jack?
I'm not too sure. It wasn't that long ago. I had one here one time when you were out.
How'd you like to have another one?
Why not?
Okay.
Can't do me any harm.
You want me to run it for you?
No, I got that taken care of. Shall I take this?
Yes, take it. Here, you should take this too.
Ah. Aren't you gonna help me scratch my back?
Oh God, there's a brush in there with a nice long handle. You can figure it out.
You don't believe in buttering up a guy, do you?
Yes.
Well, here goes. Hope it's not too deep.
Oh. Isn't that just something? I've been sharing my husband with another woman for all these years, and I never would have known it. Two wives, two widows. He took his children with him. She must have loved him a long time, too. It's a lot of devastation.
Greg. Ain't gonna rain no more, no more. Ain't gonna rain no more. How in the heck to wash my neck? Ain't gonna rain no more. Peanut sitting on the railroad track. His heart was all aflutter. Long came the 505. Splat! Peanut butter.